The cry that wouldn't stop. The wind swept low across the barren Texas plains, rattling the shutters of the small wooden ranch house. Inside, the faint smell of milk and wood smoke lingered, mingling with the sharp scent of loneliness. Eli Cartwright stood over the cradle, his rough, calloused hands trembling as his infant son wailed once again. The baby's cries pierced the quiet night, echoing through the empty house that had once held laughter, warmth, and the gentle voice of his wife. Now, there was only him and the boy. "Come on, little one, please," Eli muttered, pacing back and forth with the baby in his arms. He'd been walking for hours, trying everything: milk, blankets, rocking, but nothing worked. His shirt was damp with sweat, and his eyes were bloodshot from days without rest. The baby's small fists waved in the air, face red and wet. Eli felt a pang deep in his chest, a mix of love and helplessness. He'd buried his wife, Clara, just 3 months ago after childbirth complications. Since then, his world had been a haze of grief and duty. He could handle the ranch, the long days, the cattle drives, the dust. But this, the endless nights, the crying, the guilt that he'd failed his wife and now might fail his son too, this was breaking him. He rubbed his temples, exhaustion sinking into his bones. "I'm sorry, boy," he whispered hoarsely. "I ain't good at this. I ain't her." Outside, thunder rumbled. A storm was rolling in. The baby's cries grew louder, and Eli's chest tightened. He knew he needed help, someone who could soothe the child, someone who knew what they were doing. But the nearest town was miles away, and it was near midnight. Then, a soft knock sounded on the door. Eli froze. He wasn't expecting anyone. When he opened the door, rain spattered his boots, and a small figure stood under a shawl, clutching a lantern. "Evenin', Mr. Cartwright," came a quiet voice. It was Mara Ellison, the neighbor from the next ranch over, a young widow herself, barely in her mid-20s. She lived alone after her husband had died in a riding accident the year before. Her eyes softened as she saw the baby in Eli's arms. "I heard the crying all the way from my porch. I thought you might need some help." Eli blinked, words catching in his throat. I didn't mean to wake you." Mara stepped closer, rain dripping from her shawl. "You didn't. I wasn't sleeping much anyway." Her gaze moved to the child, and something gentle flickered across her face, something Eli hadn't seen in months. She set the lantern on the table and extended her arms slightly. "May I?" Eli hesitated only a moment before carefully handing over his son. The baby whimpered but soon quieted as Mara held him close, her movements slow, practiced, and tender. She hummed softly, a lullaby that filled the empty house like warm sunlight. Within minutes, the baby's cries faded to small hiccups and then peaceful breaths. Eli stood there, stunned. Mara smiled faintly, brushing a lock of hair from her cheek. "He's just hungry and lonely. Babies can feel things, you know. Maybe he misses his mama." Eli swallowed hard. "I reckon he does." She looked up at him, her eyes shining with understanding. "And maybe you do too." The words hit him like a slow-moving wind, painful yet true. He nodded silently, his throat too tight to speak. Mara rocked the baby a little longer, her touch steady and sure. She whispered to him, her voice as soft as the rain outside. The firelight glowed against her face, and for the first time in months, the house felt alive again, not with sorrow, but with something gentle, fragile, and human. "You don't have to do this alone," she said finally, glancing at Eli. "Let me help, for the baby's sake." Eli looked at her, the quiet strength in her voice stirring something deep inside him. "You've already helped more than you know," he murmured. But even as he said it, He realized how much he'd missed the sound of another soul in his home, the warmth, the comfort, the kindness. Outside, the storm broke fully, rain hammering the roof. Inside, a man and a woman stood by the fire, a baby asleep between them, and for the first time in a long while, Eli dared to believe that maybe, just maybe, life wasn't done offering him second chances. A gentle light returns. The next morning dawned with the faint smell of wet earth and sunlight breaking through the storm clouds. Eli woke to the quiet hum of the ranch, the drip of rain from the roof, the lowing of cattle in the distance, and, for the first time in weeks, silence inside the house. The baby wasn't crying. He blinked, sitting up on the worn couch where he'd fallen asleep. The fire in the hearth had died down to soft embers. His shirt was still rumpled from the night before, but the exhaustion that had weighed on him for days felt lighter somehow. Then he saw her. Mara sat in the rocking chair by the window, the baby nestled peacefully in her arms. The early sunlight streamed through the curtains, painting her face in gold. She was humming softly again, the same tune as the night before, and Eli stood still, just watching. He couldn't remember the last time his house had felt so calm. When Mara looked up and saw him awake, she smiled, her voice low and warm. He finally slept. Poor thing must have been hungry all this time. Eli rubbed the back of his neck. I tried feedin' him. I just couldn't get it right. Mara nodded with understanding. It takes a gentle hand and patience, Mr. Cartwright, both of which are hard to find when a man's heart is heavy. Her words were kind, but they struck true. He walked closer, crouching beside her. The baby stirred but didn't cry, one small hand resting on Mara's shawl. You sure have a way with him, Eli said softly. He likes you. She smiled faintly. Babies can sense when someone means them no harm. They just need warmth. We all do. The truth of that made his chest tighten. As the morning stretched on, Mara helped him prepare breakfast, cornbread, coffee, and the last of the eggs from his hens. She moved quietly around the kitchen, as if she'd always belonged there. The baby lay sleeping in a basket near the fire, wrapped in a soft blanket she'd brought from her home. Eli caught himself watching her more than once, the sure, graceful way she worked, the calm in her eyes. He hadn't felt anything like this in months. After breakfast, she started to leave. I should get back. My cows will think I've abandoned them. He followed her to the porch, hesitating. I'd be grateful if you came by again, Mara. I could use your help. The boy could too. She looked at him, rain still dripping from the eaves above. You don't have to thank me, Eli. Sometimes helping someone else is the only way to quiet your own loneliness. He nodded slowly. Still, I mean it. You're welcome here any time. That afternoon, she returned, with a small basket of herbs, a clean cloth, and milk for the baby. Days turned into a quiet rhythm. Mara would arrive each morning, her presence bringing life to the once silent house. She taught Eli how to hold the baby properly, how to warm the milk just right, and even how to read the little one's different cries. At first, she kept her tone careful and formal. But as the days passed, her laughter returned, a sound so rare and bright it startled Eli every time. They'd sit on the porch after supper, watching the sun dip behind the hills, the baby asleep in Mara's arms. Sometimes they talked about simple things, cattle prices, the weather, the stubborn rooster that chased her every morning. Other times, they talked about the past. I thought I'd never hear laughter again after Jacob died, Mara said one evening, her gaze on the horizon. He was a good man. But sometimes, life just takes more than it gives. Eli nodded slowly. I know that feeling. Clara used to hum to the baby before she passed. Some nights, I swear I still hear her. Mara's eyes softened. Maybe she's still here, just not the way she was. Love doesn't leave, Eli. It changes shape. Her words lingered between them, warm as the sunset light. As the weeks passed, something gentle began to grow, something unspoken but undeniable. Mara's visits stretched longer. Eli found himself looking toward the road every morning, waiting for her familiar figure to appear. She became the light in his long, dark grief, the quiet strength that steadied his trembling heart. One evening, as a cool wind swept through the valley, Eli stood in the barn, stacking hay. Mara entered quietly, carrying a lantern. The baby slept inside the house, and the night was filled only with the soft chirping of crickets. "You've done good with the baby," she said, smiling. "You're learning fast." He turned to her, wiping his hands on his trousers. "Couldn't have done it without you. Truth is, I don't know what I'd do if you hadn't shown up that night." Mara looked down, her fingers brushing the handle of the lantern. "Maybe fate brought me here. Maybe I needed this as much as you did." There was a pause, heavy but not uncomfortable. The air between them changed. Eli stepped closer, his voice low. "You've given this house back its peace, Mara. You gave that boy a mother's touch again, and gave me something I didn't think I'd ever have, a reason to look forward to the morning." Her eyes shimmered, reflecting the soft lamplight. "And what is that reason, Eli?" He swallowed. "You." For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then, slowly, Mara reached out and took his hand. Her fingers were warm, her grip steady. "I don't know what the future holds," she whispered, "but if there's a place for me here, with you, with him, I'd stay." Eli's voice caught. "There's more than a place. There's a home." She smiled through quiet tears. The storm of the past, the grief, the sleepless nights, the pain, seemed to finally fade, replaced by something stronger, gentler, and deeply real. The next morning, the ranch looked different, not in the land or the sky, but in the feeling that filled it. Laughter echoed from the porch as Mara fed the baby and Eli fixed the fence nearby. Life, once silent, was alive again. Love hadn't come in thunder or lightning, but in soft hands, quiet words, and the steady rhythm of healing hearts. And as the sun rose high above the plains, Eli Cartwright looked toward the horizon and knew his family was whole again.